So I've got an article here that I'm going to be reading some information on, but I also want to participate a little bit in some social media discourse. You know, if anyone's been on Twitter, Facebook, or any of these social media platforms, you've been probably seeing a lot of posts from so-called, I don't know, workers, quote unquote, like they're workers, right? Or they're worker advocates, or, you know, they're DSA members. There was actually this Twitter thread that went viral on Twitter from a DSA chair talking about how COVID is no big deal. And that anyone who's actually afraid of COVID, they actually hate workers because workers don't care about COVID. And so if you care, that means you hate workers. We've all seen these if you've been on social media. My opinion, it reminds me a lot of that time when Kellogg's workers were on strike and there was someone on Twitter that said, "I'm sorry, I have autism and Kellogg's Frosted Flakes are the only cereal I can eat. That's the only food I can eat." You know, we've got this new brand going on where it's like rainbow capitalism, but on crack, okay? Rainbow capitalism, but like on several different drugs, including bath salts, okay? Right? It's like this like woke, super woke language to just dress up right-wing arguments is pretty hilarious. So I want to couple this conversation with this article from the New York Times. Now, I haven't read this article yet. I choose the New York Times because the New York Times is famous for COVID denialism, so I wanted to see what they have to say on this subject. Long COVID is keeping significant numbers of people out of work, study finds. An analysis of workers' compensation claims in New York found that 71% of claimants with long COVID needed continuing medical treatment or were unable to work for 6 months or more. So, now, I personally think that anybody that wants to try to do this woke COVID denialism is probably being paid by billionaires. Either that, or they are so fucking goddamn stupid that they should not be calling themselves leftists, because they're not. You know, again, the most profound example of this, the prototype that I saw previously, was that guy who said that I have autism and I have sensory issues, and as a result I can only eat Kellogg's Frosted Flakes and that's the only food I can eat. You're ableist if you don't want me to eat Frosted Flakes. Remember that shit? I don't know if anyone saw that. I think I covered it on this show. I'm not sure. But like, that strain of thought is now in the mainstream left wing. You look at every left-wing organization and institution, you know, every single one, DSA most prominently, and they are saying the same shit Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson were saying in 2020. It's the same shit that conspiracy theorists like the Weinstein brothers and, you know, the IDW people like Jordan Peterson, right? These Joe Rogan tier anti-vax conspiracy theories are now prominent in left-wing organizations such as the DSA. What is DSA? The Democratic Socialists of America. They're not democratic, they're definitely not socialists, and they don't give a fuck about workers, because almost all of the major chapters have had giant fucking arguments about COVID, and they're almost all weighing in on the side of big business and billionaires. You know, it's a little insane to live in a world where I have seen, you know, in real time, I have watched how you have 80% of the country take the vaccine when it's first available, and now 80% of the country are refusing the vaccine. How does that happen? Because people, right, they don't actually care about politics. I need you to really understand this. And I say this from experience. Now, I don't want to paint everyone with a broad brush here. And that's not what I'm saying. But I need people to understand, right? I've worked with political campaigns. I've been to offices. I've worked with people on campaigns. I've been to, organization meetings, I've been to protests. I've covered and been to a lot of left-wing organizing spaces before COVID happened and even during some of the early years of COVID, okay? And I'm here to tell you that most people that do anything political, even on the left, to them, it doesn't fucking matter. The only reason they're there is for credentials, right? That's it. They're there so that they can tell people, yeah, I'm a member of DSA. That's it. That's the only value that going to DSA has for them, so that they can wear the t-shirt and put the rose in their Twitter bio. That's it. It's a brand. It's an exercise of branding. It's the same thing that when you wear your favorite band's t-shirt, you want everyone to know you love that band. It's a branding exercise. Now, it reminds me a lot of like the teenagers who are like 14 and they wear Nirvana shirts, but they don't know anything about Nirvana. They just like the merchandise. That's kind of the vibe I get from most leftist spaces, right? They don't actually know or care about socialism. They don't actually know or care about solidarity. They're selfish narcissists that understand that on a logical level, on a factual level, that left-wing policies are correct. Now, they're not going to do anything on a personal level to live through that or to, present that worldview, but they know that it's the winning thing in the realm of branding. And they want to be branded to be the superheroes. Well, COVID is one of those examples here. There's a couple of them, but COVID is one of the biggest examples. I think, honestly, at this point, it is the biggest example, where you see the absolute degradation, degeneration, and corruption of left-wing institutions, right? From people in Congress. Where's the squad talking about COVID? Where's Bernie Sanders talking about COVID? Very interesting, right? They mention it the most out of any politician, but it's still, in my opinion, not sufficient, right? But at least they're Congress people. At least they're doing something. What does DSA gain by being COVID denialist? Does anyone know? I don't. Right, now again, let's look back at this New York Times headline. Long COVID is keeping significant numbers of people out of work, study finds. Now again, I have seen and I've had so many people tell me that when I talk about COVID, it's anti-worker somehow. That because, acknowledging COVID somehow, I don't know. Again, it's that like rainbow capitalism, woke version of right-wing talking points. It's like the gays against groomers kind of thing, But again, when 71% of people with long COVID are needing continual medical treatment for more than 6 months, that's a fucking problem. And it is not anti-worker. The idea that I even feel the need to say this to me is honestly profound. But like, it is not anti-worker to say people should be more concerned with COVID. They should. Now, you want to know why? The real reason for COVID denialism being so prevalent in left-wing spaces? It's because a lot of people, most people are selfish, regardless of politics. Most left-wingers, most right-wingers, most people in this country are selfish narcissists. I'm willing to say 80 to 90% of people in this country are narcissistic freaks, okay? At least in politics. In politics, 99%. Let's be honest, right? I mean, you see these left-wing podcasters that are going out and doing sold-out shows in the middle of winter. Anyone else see that? These big left-wing podcasters selling out tickets for shows in the middle of winter in the Northeast during the biggest surge of the whole pandemic. Interesting, right? Why? Well, they can make some money. So, fuck it. So, I know I'm a little bit all over the place here, but just bear with me. I was talking about the main reason that people are insistent in sliding into COVID denialism is because they don't want to feel responsible. They don't want to admit that they have made a mistake. So the idea that maybe they skipped the latest bivalent shot, maybe they stopped wearing their masks, maybe they got COVID and then whatever. They don't want to feel like there's any blame involved. They made a mistake. And in order to own up to that mistake and say, oh shit, you're right, the situation changed, I should go back to wearing a mask. Instead of doing that and acknowledging reality, they slide into the fantasy world. And that is how anti-vaxxers went from 20% of the country to 80%. 83% of the country now are anti-vaxxers. How do we know that? Only 17% of the country got the latest free updated bivalent booster shot. Only 17% of the country. It's been out for 5 months. The only reason that you haven't gotten it yet is because you're a Joe Rogan fan. You're a right-winger. That's it. I don't care if you're in the DSA. I don't give a shit what you claim your politics are. For me, politics are actions, not words. You can say whatever the fuck you want on Twitter. You can say whatever the fuck you want on your DSA, chairman speech. You can say whatever the fuck you want on your podcast. But actions are the only thing that matters when it comes to politics. Right? So, I don't know what to tell you. At this point, I have lost all faith in any and every left-wing organization. I will not be joining any DSA organizations or anything even remotely like DSA. I will not be working on any left-wing political campaigns ever again. Why? Because I gave up. I gave up. I don't think that that's going to actually do anything. I really don't. And I'm not going to risk my life for a bunch of narcissistic, selfish freaks that are only doing things for branding exercises. Brianna Joy Gray comes to mind. One of those fucking freaks. So anyway, let's keep reading. And by keep reading, I mean start. Long COVID is having a significant effect on America's workforce, preventing substantial numbers of people from going back to work, while others continue needing medical care long after returning to their jobs, according to a new analysis of workers' compensation claims in New York. The study published Tuesday by New York's largest workers' compensation insurer found that during the first 2 years of the pandemic, about 71% of people the fund classified as experiencing long COVID either required continual medical treatment or unable to work for 6 months or more. Why is that a thing, by the way? Because COVID deniers and minimizers have forced a culture of, you gotta work when you're sick. I got COVID 8 times, I went into work 3 days, goddamn, did my job. Woo! When you don't rest, when you get COVID and you don't actually rest, you know what happens? It fucks your shit up. So when you get COVID and you go into work the next day, that essentially is adding months to your recovery period. Right? Just throwing that out there. So when we have a culture of forcing people to go to work when they're sick, they're going to work until they break. And it's going to take a long time to put them back together again. Someone works for a couple extra weeks when they're sick, and then they can't work for a year, and then they lose their house? Hey, what could possibly go wrong? Quote, long COVID has harmed the workforce, said the report by the New York State Insurance Fund, a state agency financed by employer-paid premiums. The findings, it added, highlighted long COVID as an underappreciated yet important reason for the many unfilled jobs and declining labor participation rate in the economy. And they presage a possible reduction in productivity as employers feel the strains of an increasingly sick workforce. I want to tell you about something. This is a fun fact for understanding the economy of this country, for understanding economics in this country. Right? Is that productivity doesn't matter. Bosses, economics professors, they will tell you productivity is the only thing that matters. But it doesn't. Productivity doesn't matter. It never has mattered. It never will matter. The ability for you to efficiently do your job is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is the gulf between the rich and the poor. It doesn't matter if the world is working less efficiently. The only thing that matters is that the delta of health, fitness, financial security between the poor people and the rich people grows as much as possible. That's why you see billionaires at Davos tell everyone at the World Economic Forum, COVID, it's just a flu, bro. It's just no big deal. Go back to work. Meanwhile, they've got extremely strict testing regimen. They've got UV lights to kill the virus in midair. They've got HEPA filters behind every chair. But they're telling people that COVID is no big deal. Go back to work. But they're scared of COVID. Why? Because they know a couple more years. All they need to do is wait a couple years. And most of the population will be too disabled to do anything. To do anything at all. When you are disabled, you can't revolt. When you are obese, you can't really protest. When you are addicted to certain substances like sugar, you really can't go against the government at all. And that is why this country is more interested in poisoning its workforce. 95% of Americans don't even eat vegetables, right? They're more interested in poisoning the workforce because they, the workforce, will get sicker and less able-bodied over time. And the rich, maybe once life extension comes in, they're going to get more able-bodied over time. And then it's game, set, match. And Americans are walking right into the trap because they're dumb, selfish lunatics. Socialists, self-described socialists. They're walking right in. Why? Because it was never about socialism. It was never about workers' rights. It was never about collective bargaining. It was always about, I think politics is a cool idea to market myself, and I want people to think I'm hip and with the kid crowd, so I'm going to call myself a communist, bro. Except everything that they do is extremely capitalistic, and they don't actually care about politics at all. That's most people in this country. They don't give a shit. That's every politician except for maybe one or two. They just don't give a fuck. So I want you to understand this, and maybe I'm jaded. I don't know. Maybe your experience or mileage may vary. But being in left-wing institutions, being a part of campaigns, trying to join organizations and acting in that kind of stuff, and it really taught me a major thing. And that most people that do activism, they don't actually give a fuck. Again, I did a lot of protesting stuff throughout the last 5 years, and I can tell you for a fact, a lot of people only go to protests to take pictures. That's why you see a lot of protests in this country. It's like a couple days of protesting, and then everyone gets bored and gives up. Why? Well, they already got the photo op. No one actually cares about protesting a sustained protest, a targeted protest that actually impacts the economy. They don't care about that. They want to show up, get the photos. Hey, look, Mom, I'm on TV, and then go home. That's most Americans. They don't care. They don't fucking care at all. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about each other. They don't care about their family. The only thing they care about at this point is getting as many likes as they can on Instagram with their cool pose, with their DSA t-shirt at the protest. That's all these people care about. It's all they care about. When I say these people, I'm talking about 83% of Americans. I'm talking about most people. Now, again, I'm not talking about everybody. And I know that my audience is disproportionately very likely to be in the 17% of Americans who actually still care enough to actually bother with this pandemic. Right? So I know I'm speaking to the choir here. But, the mental toll that it takes, on me, for example, because I can't stop thinking about this stuff. the mental toll that it takes on me, you know, having realized at this point that it's all a waste of my time, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. I don't think the world is going to get safe in the end. The arc of history does not bend toward justice. We're just going to have to watch each other suffer until there's a critical mass of people that are willing to do something about it. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I really don't. I really don't. I don't think that that critical mass will happen. And if it does happen, it'll be too late. Everyone's too disabled and too poisoned by the food industry to do anything about it. That's my opinion. So I say the world's on fire, and let's sit back and put some sunglasses on and watch the show. Because at this point, I'm going to do my best to avoid COVID. I still haven't gotten it yet, to my knowledge. It's possible I did. But who knows? I could have been asymptomatic. I don't know. It's possible. But I'm going to sit back and watch the show. That's what I'm going to do. Somehow, and I don't know how, I don't know why, but somehow I have managed to find myself in a situation where I can work from home. Lucky. I lucked out. But I'm going to take advantage of that luck. I'm not going to squander that opportunity. I have a chance to avoid a deadly plague. I'm going to take it. Because guess what? I don't know. Maybe I'm just as selfish as everyone else. Who knows? But what I can tell you is I'm not going to sit up here and lie about being in favor of the workers' rights while minimizing the dangers of COVID. You know what I mean? And it's a sad fact that most left-wing, ostensibly left-wing institutions in the world have just given up. They just gave up. You know, when I was working with the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2020, one of the things we advocated for was Medicare for all. Right? And then 3 years later, we have a free vaccine. It's free. Medical care is now free for everybody in regards to the most dangerous virus we've ever seen as a country. It's free. And only 17% of the country bothered with it. We're never going to get Medicare for all in this country. It's never going to happen. Why? Americans are too dumb. They're too dumb. Americans are too dumb. That's just a fact. They're too fucking dumb. They're lazy, stupid morons. We're never going to get Medicare for all. You want free healthcare? Save up your money, leave the country. That's my recommendation. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. Why? Because your fellow American is a freak. Your neighbor, people in your family, they're all fucking freaks. Don't know what to tell you. I really don't. So yeah, long COVID destroying the workforce, by the way. That's cool. You can read the rest of this. It just goes into more detail. And, you know, I actually, you know, I skimmed it earlier, but still, I mean, to me, like, this whole subject has just gotten to the point where it depresses me. It causes me extreme anxiety. Because I'm not going to lie to you. And I could have, you know, this is me learning a life lesson, right? But I'm not going to lie to you, man. When I was, you know, doing protests and when I was doing, like, Bernie stuff way back in the day, way back, you know, in the before times, I genuinely thought, well, Medicare for all is popular, right? Like, all we have to do is tell people and they'll be like, oh, shit, yeah. But that's not the case. People literally don't want things like Medicare for all because they're propagandized, aka they're too stupid to know any better. They actually don't give a fuck. You know? They actually don't care. And that's a huge wake-up call for me because I actually thought things like Medicare for all was popular. I thought that was popular. I thought minimum wage increases were popular. I thought universal basic income's popular. I thought, why wouldn't anyone want this stuff? And now I've realized it's because they're American. That's why. People don't want to eat Vegetables. 95% of this country, they don't eat vegetables. That's crazy. That's crazy. 95% of Americans are too dumb to know how to eat food properly. 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated because they don't drink water. Like, what do you do with a population like that? How are you going to move that population into doing anything? You can't. You got to fix those problems. You are not going to convince someone who's got chronic brain fog, early onset dementia to go out and risk their life to protest police violence. They're not going to do that. You're not going to convince anyone to do anything when we live in a country like this. So I don't know, man. I say, let it rip, bro. Because that's what the country's already doing. Let COVID rip. Let as many people die as quickly as possible. And then maybe, just maybe in 10 years, all the dummies die off. And things might start to look any better. But I've given up. I'm 26 years old. I've given up. I'm telling you this. I've resigned my fate. I will stay in my house until I'm 30. I will stay in my house until I'm 40 if I need to. All I want to know is that, hopefully, a time will come when I can go outside and all the dummies will have died off. That is the only thing keeping me going. I hope, and if I believed in God, I would pray that the dummies die as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, and then eventually, maybe, I can leave the house. But who knows? Maybe that's a pipe dream. Who knows? But anyway, all hope is lost. So, I'm sorry if I am going into the nihilism zone, but it's the world I live in. It's the world we live in. We're all in this together. And that's it. We're all in this together, and yet we're all by ourselves. Isn't that crazy?